world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
What's the show? What show are we on, Dick? Tell me what the show is. Oh, my God.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show. It's sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
And, Dick, real fast, the call-in number is 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. I hope you realize I'm fooling around when Dick doesn't call out the show. I go, Dick, what show is this?
Yeah, he needs to know because he's walking down the block looking for a mic.
I want a raise. He told me I'll pay on the second floor.
Yeah, right. So the big news right now is that economic indications are much more optimistic, and it's impossible even for the media and liberals to ignore. They'll try, and they'll continue to badmouth the economy, but the data is becoming overwhelming. Consumer confidence rose for the third consecutive month in early February, according to the University of Michigan's preliminary assessment of the household sector. The index of consumer sentiment rose to 57.3, upending expectations that the index would retreat after prior month's unexpected rise. The improvement is driven by better views on current economic conditions, with the index climbing 5.2%. The gauge of expected conditions slipped slightly. This is the third, which is good because it was inflation. This is the third highest reading for the University of Michigan's index since August of 25. The index has climbed 12.5% since a recent low in November. So both Republicans and Democrats registered improved readings in February, with rises in both the expectations and current condition barometer. Republican expectations are now at the highest reading since shortly after Trump's return to the White House. Independents are more satisfied with current conditions. Expectations for inflation in the year ahead plunged. The expected rate of inflation over next year, fell 3.5%, the lowest it's been since January of last year. So you can look at all the polling you want, but consumer expectations, which is a survey involving tens of thousands of households, is really the key thing to watch. The fact is the U.S. added more jobs than expected during January, the government reported Wednesday, and a development that should ease fears about lackluster hiring. Payrolls rose by 130,000, far exceeding a consensus Wall Street forecast of only about 55,000. Trump said, great jobs numbers, greater than expected. He put in caps on his social media.
Well, you know, Dick, independent is the most important thing you just said here, that the independents, because those are the guys we need for the midterms. And the other thing is the media doesn't talk about this.
Yeah, but Trump told me that, and I told him, listen, sir, you're the president. He said this was last week. I said, don't worry about it. You're more important than all of the media put together. When you give a positive economic report, the country listens to you, especially since your credibility is so high over so many months.
Yeah, but what about the people that are listening to only the liberal news?
Eventually they get it.
Eventually they will.
Eventually it comes.
It's almost like osmosis.
Well, you flood the zone, you pound the zone.
Right.
And there are so many points of coverage, maybe 10, 15 each day, and they can't all be negative. And the media ultimately faces an insuperable task in making a good economy look bad. And it's not dependent on people's personal wallet or pocketbook.
I was just about to say that.
It's on flooding the zone with news media.
Yeah, but I was just about to say, as we talked last week about this, that once people do see money in their pocket or they can afford
it may take a while to see that. And the point is that you look at consumer indices, consumer confidence, you look at the data on inflation, and that's what really counts. Eventually, the world will catch up to it. And Trump is disheartened by that, and he should not be. He's flooding the zone with good economic news, and that is having a huge impact on American opinion. Now, this week was a gigantic change in federal regulatory policy. And it drew minimal headlines, but it was one of the most important things that's happening in the first Trump year. Trump repealed the rule, or the finding, that said that climate change was a health threat to human beings.
Unless you're outside in New York last week when it was below 2 degrees.
By climate change, Doug, they mean global warming.
I know.
Freezing to death. And the fact is that by repealing the finding that climate change is endangering human health, Trump cut out the groundwork out from under almost every federal climate regulation there is.
Right.
Because it was all predicated on the administrative finding that climate change was bad for people. It was bad for human health. And once that was repealed by this administration officially, all of these regulations, all of these standards, all the emissions controls, all the limits on coal, all the limits on nuclear power, all the limits on fossil fuels were completely undercut and will not be able to recover. This is the greatest and most significant regulatory change ever since the myth of climate change surfaced.
Plus what it will do for the economy also.
Yeah, both. But the key thing here is that all of these regulations have to have a finding by fact by the federal government as a basis. And by eliminating that finding of fact and reversing it and flipping it, Trump has undercut the basis of all of it.
Excellent. He also urged to exempt off-grid power sources. A coalition of right-of-center activists sent a letter Monday to the Senate urging passage of the Data Act, which would allow off-grid power sources to be built and used without regulation as a public utility. This is good. Led by the Competitive Enterprise Institute, the group stressed the growing demand for electricity from AI data centers and others. The Data Act decentralized access to technology alternatives, that's data, was introduced last month by Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. It would allow data centers to bypass federal energy regulations to encourage the centers to build their own independent off-grid power supplies. This initiative is anticipated to support AI infrastructure development and establish consumer-regulated electric utilities, CREU. I'm going to go CREU. Electricity demand from artificial intelligence data centers and other sources is rising at a rapid rate. It takes a lot of juice for that AI stuff. At the same time, power plant retirements and renewable energy mandates in the states are pushing the grid to the brink. The letter said, the existing electrical grid will continue to struggle to meet this burdening demand unless we allow new options for electricity-intensive businesses to produce the power they need. It said off-grid power systems are one viable solution.
They're basically saying BYO, build your own.
That's right.
Bring your own.
That's right.
You want to flood the system with demand for power that AI has.
Then you better build
Fine,
it.
You build it.
Now we'll figure out who can build it for you.
Grid.
Right.
And this is a very important step because it really means that AI is no longer going to drive up utility bills. Flash news, and this is kind of like, what was that movie you said about Back to the Future?
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, we're living in a world now that is increasingly Back to the Future.
Right.
Because what Trump is doing is changing the economy in such a way that it looks like it did in the 60s and the 50s. The federal government's employment is the lowest now since 1966.
That's amazing.
The economy reports that federal employment is now lower than at any time since 1966.
Wow.
1966. Keep draining the swamp, Mr. President.
That's 60 years.
That's right.
Until now.
And we'll report on this later in the show. But the homicide rate, the murder rate, is now at its lowest since 1900. Welcome to the days of Wyatt Earp and John Dillinger and Al Murder Capone in Chicago Inc. We're past all of that. We now have less murder than we had since 1900.
Since they started recording it.
Yeah, and the real thing is we're deporting the murderers.
That's it.
So we have less murder. And the media is not playing that the murder rate and the crime rate is lowering, partially because of increased enforcement, partially because of the National Guard, but mainly because we're throwing the murderers the hell out of the country.
And they're leaving with a couple $1,000s in their pocket.
Now, the sentiment is also growing for indexing capital gains to spur home ownership sales. You're sitting there with a house, and the government says the house is worth $100,000, but the market says you could sell it for $200,000. What increasingly the cap gains is based on the 200, and what we need to do is to index it. So as the cost of living increases and the cost of a home increases, home affordability becomes possible. In the Wall Street Journal, index relating capital indexing of homes for capital gains purposes incentivizes baby boomers to sell their homes. Because if your home is worth more than they say it is, you're going to get more for it on the market. And if the capital gains tax punishes you for that gain, you're not going to sell it. But if the capital gains tax stops punishing you, you're going to sell it.
I thought capital gains tax was only paid after you sell it. No?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a yearly thing, right?
No, it is. But the expectations of capital gains have everything to do with what your decision to sell and not sell.
Right.
Because your accountant says, you're going to sell, are you out of your mind? You're going to lose your shirt. And you won't lose your shirt. In fact, you'll make some money. But the media is telling you you're going to lose your shirt because we're not indexing the capital gains taxes.
And they hate Trump.
Now, the media came out with a report that DHS was deporting only people that 14% of the people who were deported by DHS had criminal records, and the rest of them were really innocent.
Yeah, but
born with babes in the woods.
Earlier in February, CBS News released a report with a jarring headline which reads, less than 14% of those arrested by ICE in Trump's first year back in office had violent criminal records, document shows, with the report attempting to discredit the Trump administration's claims and accompanying efforts to apprehend what has been repeatedly cited as the worst of the worst criminal illegals. Check this out. CBS News reporting on the cited data, the outlet only points to offenses like homicide, robbery, kidnapping, sexual assault, and assault as being under umbrella term of violent offenses, touted when attempting to undermine the efforts of the current administration. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin took to social media to address the reporting of CBS. Drug trafficking, distribution of child pornography, burglary, fraud, DUI, embezzlement, solicitation of a minor, and human smuggling are all categories as non-violent crimes. That's the problem. So that wasn't counted. Like we said, 70% of those illegal aliens arrested under Trump and Noam have pending criminal charges or prior convictions. Apparently, CBS News also glossed over criminal illegal aliens who had criminal charges or convictions from their country of origin, framing such individuals as simply people who were apprehended by immigration authorities for civil immigration offenses. So CBS doesn't care about the safety of us. They care that they hate Trump and they have to talk stuff about him. I almost said it.
And the point is that is that the vast majority, like 70-80% of the people we're throwing out of the country have criminal records and are criminals. And they're trying to prove that they're not by excluding entire categories of crime and saying they're not criminals.
Well, you know why? Because they're talking to their useful idiots. They're talking to the people that are just morons.
And when we come back, the most important implication is as deportations increase, crime decreases. As deportations increase, crime decreases because there are fewer people in the country who are criminals.
Right. When we get back.